Everyone has that one TV character they absolutely adore, and at least one they can't stand. The Big Bang Theory is a perfect example. Across 12 seasons, some characters went from annoying to beloved, while others became increasingly difficult for fans to tolerate. So today, we're looking at the most loved and most hated characters in The Big Bang Theory, and what exactly made audiences feel so strongly about them. When Howard first appeared, he was difficult to defend. He was the sleazy geek who constantly hit on women and used ridiculous pickup lines. His behavior could be incredibly inappropriate. But then Bernadette entered his life, and everything started to change. Bernadette called Howard out on his behavior and forced him to grow up. Over time, the womanizer became a devoted husband and eventually a loving father. Howard still maintained his sense of humor. He still made ridiculous jokes and did goofy impressions. But underneath all of that, there was genuine growth. He learned to apologize when he was wrong. He stood up for Bernadette. He became a better partner. And he even overcame one of his biggest fears when he went into space. By the end of the show, Howard was no longer the same person viewers met in the early seasons. He had become a family man and one of Leonard and Sheldon's closest friends. That's why Howard became so beloved. He wasn't loved because he was perfect. He was loved because fans got to watch him change. But while Howard's transformation made fans appreciate him, the next character became hated for almost the exact opposite reason. Leonard's mother, Beverly Hofstadter, is one of the most emotionally damaging characters in the entire series. And what makes her so disturbing is that she rarely needs to raise her voice. She's calm, she's clinical, she's precise, and she treats Leonard's emotions almost like scientific data. From the beginning, it's clear that Leonard grew up feeling more like a psychological experiment than a child. Beverly constantly analyzes him, reduces his feelings to observations, and openly favors his siblings. And suddenly, Leonard's constant need for approval makes much more sense. He spent his childhood trying to earn validation from a mother who rarely gave it to him. What makes Beverly especially frustrating is that she doesn't seem to recognize the damage she's caused. When Leonard confronts her about her parenting, she doesn't respond with the kind of emotional apology he wants. Instead, she treats the confrontation almost like another intellectual exercise. Even the show's humor surrounding Beverly can make these moments uncomfortable. The fact that she can casually admit things like never hugging Leonard as a child makes the character even more disturbing. Leonard can be an adult with a successful career, a loving wife, and close friends. Yet around Beverly, he can still regress into the child desperately seeking his mother's approval. And that's what makes Beverly such a hated character. It's not simply that she was a strict mother. It's that she taught Leonard that affection and approval had to be earned. But not every character who started off strangely ended up being hated. When Amy first appeared near the end of season 3, fans weren't immediately sure what to think. She was a neurobiologist who seemed almost perfectly matched with Sheldon. Like him, she was socially awkward, analytical, and uncomfortable with ordinary social situations. But there was one major difference. Amy wanted connection. She wanted friendship. She wanted romance. And watching her gradually come out of her shell became one of the most satisfying character journeys in the series. Amy developed her own humor and became increasingly relatable as she learned how to navigate friendships and relationships. But perhaps her biggest contribution was what she did for Sheldon. Amy helped humanize him. Through her patience, frustration, and love, Sheldon slowly became a better person. Their relationship eventually led to marriage, and the two even won a Nobel Prize together. What started as one of the show's strangest pairings eventually became one of its most important relationships. That's why Amy went from a character fans weren't sure about to someone many viewers genuinely loved. But while Amy helped Sheldon become a better person, another main character went in the opposite direction in the eyes of many fans. Raj's decline in popularity was one of the more interesting character changes in the series. Early on, many viewers found him sweet and funny, but as the show progressed, some of his less appealing traits became much more obvious. Raj increasingly came across as entitled and selfish. He constantly complained about being lonely, but at the same time, he often behaved badly in relationships. One of the biggest examples was when he dated two women simultaneously and lied to each of them about the other. He also became involved in Howard and Bernadette's marriage. At one point, Raj even fantasized about Bernadette and hoped their marriage would fall apart so he could have a chance with her. That behavior frustrated many fans. And after Raj overcame his selective mutism, viewers expected him to become more mature. Instead, his treatment of women often became another another source of criticism. By the end of the series, some fans felt that Raj simply hadn't grown enough. He was still funny, and his friendship with Howard remained one of the strongest relationships on the show. But compared with the development of other characters, many viewers felt Raj had failed to learn from his mistakes. But while Raj's popularity declined, another character became beloved simply by embracing his role as the group's lovable loser. Stuart, the owner of the comic book store, began as a side character, but over time, he became a surprisingly important part of the show. He's kind-hearted, helpful, awkward, and just as nerdy as the main group. But what really made Stuart stand out was that he was the show's lovable loser. His life was almost always going wrong. He struggled financially, struggled with relationships, and spent much of the series alone. Yet instead of becoming depressing, those struggles became part of his comedy. His dark jokes about his own miserable circumstances became some of his most memorable moments. As the show progressed, Stuart received more screen time and became increasingly connected to Howard's family. He even temporarily moved in with Howard's mother, and later helped take care of Howard and Bernadette's children. That gave viewers more opportunities to see his awkward but genuinely sweet personality. And eventually, Stuart found Denise, a fellow comic book enthusiast. For fans who had watched Stuart struggle for years, seeing him finally find happiness was incredibly satisfying. But while Stuart's awkwardness made people love him, another character became one of the show's most disliked. Priya entered the show during season 4 as Raj's younger sister and one of Leonard's serious girlfriends. The problem? She was dating Leonard. For many fans, that automatically put her in direct competition with Penny, who had already become one of the show's most popular characters. But Priya gave viewers plenty of other reasons to dislike her. She was intelligent and successful, but her relationship with Leonard often came across as controlling. She pressured Leonard to distance himself from Penny and tried to dictate aspects of his life. That made her difficult for audiences to sympathize with, especially because fans were already invested in Leonard and Penny's relationship. And things became even worse when Priya cheated on Leonard with her ex-boyfriend while she was back in India. So even though she only appeared in a relatively small number of episodes, Priya left a major impression. Unfortunately for her, it was mostly a negative one. But while Priya became associated with one of the show's most complicated relationships, another character became the emotional glue of the entire group. It's hard not to love Penny. When she first arrives, she's the down-to-earth neighbor from across the hall. And at first, she seems like she could easily become the stereotypical sitcom dumb blonde. But the show quickly gives her much more depth. Penny starts out as a struggling actress working as a waitress, but over the course of the series, she becomes a confident pharmaceutical sales representative. And while she isn't a scientist like Leonard, Sheldon, Howard, or Raj, Penny brings something the others often lack: social intelligence. She's street smart, outspoken, and knows how to handle people. That makes her the perfect contrast to the socially awkward scientists around her. But what really made fans love Penny was the heart underneath her sarcasm. She constantly looked out for her friends, defended them when necessary, and became especially important to Sheldon. One of her most memorable moments is comforting him by singing Soft Kitty when he's sick. Her relationship with Leonard also became one of the show's central stories. What started as an unlikely friendship eventually developed into marriage, and over 12 seasons, Penny went from a commitment-phobic party girl to a supportive wife and an important part of the entire group. She proved that a character doesn't need a PhD to be intelligent. Penny's greatest strength was understanding people, and that's exactly why so many fans saw her as the emotional glue of the group. But while Penny became beloved, another socially awkward character became one of the show's most disliked. Lucy was an extremely shy woman who dated Raj. At first, her severe social anxiety made her sympathetic, but her behavior toward Raj quickly became difficult for viewers to watch. During their very first date at a coffee shop, Lucy became so overwhelmed that she escaped through the bathroom window without even properly saying goodbye. She later apologized and gave the relationship another chance, but her problems with communication continued. Lucy frequently fled uncomfortable situations or lied because she struggled to say no. Her anxiety was understandable, but the problem was that Raj repeatedly ended up getting hurt. At one point, the two were so uncomfortable communicating face to face that they literally rarely texted each other while sitting together. Eventually, Lucy ended the relationship through email because Raj had become too clingy from her perspective. Raj was devastated, and although the breakup eventually helped him grow, Lucy's repeated behavior made her one of the show's least popular recurring characters. But none of these characters had the same level of popularity as the show's central genius. Sheldon Cooper isn't just one of the most popular characters in The Big Bang Theory. He's one of the most recognizable sitcom characters of his generation. He's brilliant, socially awkward, arrogant, stubborn, and completely unaware of many ordinary social rules. And somehow, that combination became hilarious. Sheldon delivered countless memorable jokes, catchphrases, and situations throughout the series. But what made him truly work was Jim Parsons' performance. Parsons took a character who could easily have become unbearable and made him strangely endearing. Sheldon could be incredibly selfish and frustrating, but audiences also got to watch him change. His relationships with Leonard, Penny, Amy, and the rest of the group became the emotional foundation of the show. Penny gradually learned how to break through Sheldon's hard exterior. Amy patiently helped him understand friendship, romance, and eventually love. And by the end, Sheldon had changed dramatically from the person we met at the beginning. He even won the Nobel Prize with Amy. Yes, some viewers still found him annoying. Living with someone like Sheldon would probably be exhausting. But when it comes to sheer fan affection, he remained in a league of his own. And finally, we come to one character whose brief appearances were enough to make her unforgettable for very different reasons. Ramona didn't appear very often, but she didn't need many episodes to make an impression. She was a Caltech graduate student who idolized Sheldon and became obsessed with his work. At first, her admiration might have seemed harmless, but it quickly went too far. Ramona imposed herself into Sheldon's life and essentially acted like his girlfriend and research assistant without giving him much choice in the matter. She began micromanaging his research, controlling what he did, and even trying to prevent him from having fun or socializing. She gave Sheldon almost no personal space. Eventually, even Sheldon couldn't tolerate it anymore. He finally kicked her out. And while Ramona's appearances were limited, her controlling behavior was enough to earn her a place among the show's most disliked characters. Looking at all these characters, the most loved and hated characters represent very different things. Penny became beloved because she brought warmth and social intelligence to the group. Stuart won people over through his kindness despite his miserable circumstances. Amy became loved because fans watched her grow and help Sheldon become a better person. Howard's popularity came from his transformation from an immature womanizer into a devoted husband and father. And Sheldon ultimately became the show's biggest character because of his unique personality, comedy, relationships, and development. On the other side, Priya frustrated fans by interfering with Leonard and Penny and later cheating on Leonard. Lucy repeatedly hurt Raj despite her understandable anxiety. Raj lost popularity because his selfish behavior and treatment of women became increasingly difficult to defend. Ramona crossed boundaries and tried to control Sheldon's life. And Beverly stood out as perhaps the most emotionally damaging because of the way she treated Leonard throughout his childhood. That's what makes The Big Bang Theory so interesting. The characters fans loved weren't necessarily perfect, and the characters fans hated weren't always completely without explanation. What mattered was how their actions affected the people around them, and whether viewers believed they deserved forgiveness. After 12 seasons, Sheldon may have taken the top spot for the most loved, while Beverly remains one of the easiest characters to hate. But there's one thing the entire cast proved. A great sitcom character doesn't have to be perfect. They just have to make you feel something. And The Big Bang Theory had plenty of characters who did exactly that.